It did get quiet, yes. Everyone waits until I'm up here putting on my chapstick before, and then they're like, let's watch him put on his chapstick, everyone. Good morning, my friends.
Good morning.
What's that?
You're easily entertained.
Easily entertained, yes. And Happy New Year to you all. And I am so glad to be back. It is always a challenge to believe it or not, to take a week off away from you. But it is. I find myself going, oh, Sunday morning. What do I do? Absolutely nothing. And that's exactly what we did. So thanks for the week off. And hello, Sita. Your Majesty.
She just takes her sweet time.
The Magi has arrived.
Yes. Now we can start.
That's right. So this morning we're in dual focus because this is technically the second week of Christmas, Christmas 2 in the church year, but we're also celebrating the Festival of Epiphany, which actually is tomorrow, but we're celebrating it today. And I'd like to thank Lori and Elizabeth and anyone else who helped turn the sanctuary into the Festival of Epiphany with all the stars and the beautiful decorations. So thank you all for continuing to build a beautiful worship space for us. So let's take a moment. Be rejoiced. Feel the joy of the moment of being all together this morning. Feel the love of this room, the Spirit moving around us, the friendship and the family that we are, and remind ourselves that no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, I am welcome here.
The Holy Scripture for today is from the Common English Bible, and is from Matthew 2, 1 through 12. Coming of the Magi. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in the territory of Judea, during the rule of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. They asked, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We've seen his star in the east, and we've come to honor him." When King Herod heard this, he was troubled, and everyone in Jerusalem was troubled with him. He gathered all the chief priests and the legal experts and asked them where the Christ was to be born. They said, "In Bethlehem of Judea." For this is what the prophet wrote, "You, Bethlehem, land of Judah, by no means are the least among the rulers of Judah, because from you will come one who governs, who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and found out from them the time when the star had first appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child. When you have found him, report to me, so that I too may go and honor him." When they heard the king, they went, and look, the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with Mary his mother. Falling to their knees, they honored him. Then they opened their treasure chests and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Because they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their own country by another route.
So I'd like to read just for a moment a reflection on this passage and this story from Kate Matthews, who is the retired dean of Amistad Chapel at the national headquarters of the UCC in Cleveland. She says, "It happened, of course, not in a good and happy time, but in Herod's time, a great time of injustice and great suffering. Brutal King Herod, after all, was that most dangerous kind of powerful person, an insecure and fearful one, eaten up with worry about maintaining his power and his place and his comfort, his advantage, and if you will, his privilege. Protecting all those things can demand a lot of energy from a person, especially since Herod wasn't a, quote, real king. He was just sort of a puppet of the empire, the hated and the oppressive Roman Empire. So just imagine then how thrilled this pretend king must have been on that day when this little band of wise men from the east showed up at his palace with their camels parked out front, loaded down with treasure, and they asked him, the king, asked him for directions to the real King of the Jews. How do you think Herod felt in that moment? Threatened, exactly. Herod felt threatened because we already heard and we know from Scripture that in these coming chapters that he was very insecure. After all, he is the king. He's the only one that matters. His rule is that of an authoritarian, of a dictator, if you will. Herod, even though he commands that authority, where do we hear that the authority really comes from? Rome, the Roman Empire. The power comes from the men who are the leaders of the Roman Empire, but they placed Herod up on this pedestal, right? A throne, a literal throne to sit on. And so he received his power not as God would will, but as the men and those who are in power in Rome sought fit. And then he hears, wait, there's another king? Another king was just born? A little baby? And you're not coming here to bring these treasures to me, but you're on your way to deliver these treasures to the person whom you feel is king of the Jews? And you're asking me how to get there? That's what the story is setting up, right? So we later know that the Magi, who are what we call the wise men, right? They eventually find Joseph and Mary and little baby Jesus. Now, they were looking for Jesus, who is a king in their minds. Where would you look for a king or a queen or something like that? A palace. Right. That's why they stopped by Herod's first, not Herod's of London. They weren't shopping. But they stopped by King Herod's palace because that was the first palace they came across on their long journey. And when we say the East, historically and geographically, that's not the East like Asia. This is East like what we now call the Middle East, so and very specifically the areas of Iran and Iraq. So that's where Herod's located. And so they get there and then they continue on after Herod consults with his legal scholars, his religious leaders and clerics, and they tell him where baby Jesus, or where this new king has been born, which is where? In Bethlehem. So Herod sends them on a mission, and he says, go, he's instructing them to go and find this king, but not to give pleasantries and to, welcome the new king with open arms, but to basically spy and see what this is all about. Who is this and what's going on? And report back to me. But when they arrive in Bethlehem, and they don't find this new king in a palace, they find him where? In a house, in a manger, not where you'd expect a king to be. Do they collect this information and just simply report back to Herod? No. What does the story tell us that they do? They what, Pat? They took another path. They said something bad is going to happen. How many of you have seen the movie Ghost? Right? Old movie. Now, I don't mean to trivialize this, but right now the Magi were Whoopi Goldberg telling, what's the actress's name? The other one. Demi Moore. You in danger, girl. And so that's what they're telling Mary and Joseph about their baby that has just been born. They're saying, you are in danger. You need to go. And that's when they fled. So, that's the little nutshell of the story of what's happening. This is a lot of action in one little passage, right? But let's dissect this a bit. We have a new king, and he's a baby. And we talked about this a little bit on Christmas Eve and a little bit the week before. I would like you to all close your eyes for a moment if you're comfortable doing so. I promise I won't come up and clap loudly in your ear or anything like that. I promise. Just this once, I promise. But I want you to think of a time when either you had a child yourself or you were able to go and visit a newborn baby. And I want you to think for a moment about the sounds of that baby, the smell of that baby, how it felt in your arms, the way its eyes looked up at you. And now you can open your eyes. What types of feelings and emotions are you feeling as you conjure up those images and those feelings? Peace.
What a
Love.
miracle it is.
What a miracle it is. New life. What else? What, Joanne?
Wonderment.
Wonderment. Awe. Satisfaction.
Desire to protect.
Desire to protect that baby, right? Innocence is what I get. I don't have children, but I know that when I see a baby, that's what I see is innocence.
New beginning.
And a new beginning.
Dennis?
Yes, Bob.
For me, it's instant equality. It's kind of interesting because I always think of God coming down on a baby as being really humble, but a baby it's equal status to everybody and everybody. So like if there's not room at the table, everybody slides over and here comes the baby.
Right.
So it's like instant equality.
Right. That reminds me of a sermon today is apparently on movies and TV, just so you know. That reminds me of, who's seen the show The West Wing ever? So there's a character on there named Toby Ziegler, and he and his former wife end up, after they were divorced, they sort of fell back in love and end up having twins, a boy and a girl. And there's a moment when Toby is just by himself holding these two sweet, innocent babies for the first time ever, alone. And he's just talking to them and saying, hey, I'm your dad. Sorry about your luck, but this is what you're given. And he was admiring their little beanie hats that the nurses had placed on their heads. And, one blue, one pink for the boy and the girl. And he said, here you are, you come into this world with nothing. You don't even have jobs, but you get hats. You get a hat. You've already gotten a hat. So that's kind of what that drew that image for me of the baby comes into this world on equal footing with everything else around it. Animal, human, class, doesn't matter. It's just a sweet, innocent baby in a crib. And this is the king. The prophet told King of the Jews has arrived. And we're told by Isaiah and others that we're to listen to this king. That there will be a king sent here that we're to follow. That we're to follow the teachings of for all humanity. So, how did the Magi then find this baby king? What did they follow? A star. A star. So, stars are very important things in our universe, right? And there's a lot of power with those stars. And so they're following this star, and that's where they find baby Jesus. Now, if they're having enough faith, if they're having enough faith to follow a star, to find this baby king, And it's that important to them to take these gifts and offer it. Now, these are well thought after people from, as I said, the East, which now would be the Middle East. They think enough of this. There's such importance that they sent their most important people. They had to have a lot of faith. One, in that star, and two, they had to have faith that what they've been foretold for ever, that this baby king was coming, they had that faith all those years before Jesus arrived, and they had to have that faith that Jesus was going to be there. Right? There's a lot of faith going on here. Hence my title. Following a star, following our faith. So, why am I focusing on the innocence of Jesus, this baby king?
There's no preconceived notion to cause you to follow.
There's-
It's pure faith.
It's pure faith. There's something about the innocence, though. I'll give you another image to think of. You may have seen it in the news over the past couple of days. There was a photo taken of, in the throne room of, I don't know if it was Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, one of the two, but it was a photo of Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge, and Prince George. Why are those four people significant? One is on the throne, and the next three are the next three in line, right? Prince George only stands yay high, and he's number 3 in line to the throne. And he knows nothing but innocence. He's a child, right? He's a child that will someday be king. Children do not possess the biases, the anger, the negativity, the hatred, anything like that we have, that we've learned over time, either from the way we were raised or the people we're around, or the way that our worldview has been shaped by our communities or events that have happened in our lives. They're not shaped by any of that yet. They're born equal to the rest of the world, as Bob said, and they're full of innocence. So imagine if they were to lead as a child a kingdom, they would lead from a place of innocence, of happiness, of kindness, of gentleness, with peace. So, Jesus later grows up, as children do, and starts to teach us. And then we start to follow Jesus' teachings, hence Christianity. So, what does all of this, how does this resonate with you when it comes to our world today and our faith and our way of tapping into our faith and thinking of innocent baby Jesus, Emmanuel, which is what? God with us. Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus the Christ, right here as an infant. how does that merge into how you approach your faith here and now in today's world?
I think it provides you with hope, no matter what's going on.
It gives you some hope. Because I think it was you, Gary, that said a new start, a new beginning. Yeah. How else?
To approach God like a child.
To approach God like a child. With some innocence, and also, what do children need? Love.
Guidance.
Thank you, Linda. Guidance. Thank you, Connie. Guidance. You get a sticker and you get a sticker. Wisdom. 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 Guidance. Care. Love. We are known as the children of God, right? We are all called the children of God. Who else is called the children of God? Blessed are those who are what?
Peacemakers.
Peacemakers, because they shall be called the children of God.
But we need to see everybody as children of God.
And we need to see everyone as children of God. Imagine what the world would be like if two people who are about to, on a low level, get into a physical altercation, saw in each other's eyes the fact that they are each children and children of God. What do you think? How do you think that would feel if these two people are about to fight and they realize, wait, that person is my family. We are children of God. On a large level. What's that?
Relief?
They would feel relief and hopefully restraint to not throw that blow, right? Jane.
I'm a big addict of MASH, and I was
Me
watching
too.
a few days ago where, as you know, the main characters, Hawkeye and BJ, are very anti-war because what they see. And this pilot came in who had been dropping the bombs, and he didn't think anything about it because he didn't see the direct destruction. So they took him into the hospital, and he said, "You did this on purpose." And Hawkeye said, "Yes, I did. I wanted you to see what those bombs are doing." That was back in the 1950s. Let's fast forward, when that drone came down in the Middle East and killed the general and people around him, I thought, oh my gosh, we have not changed at all in 70 plus years. Now we don't have the pilot up there. We're sending drones over and dropping them on people. And I think that's part of the horrors of the wars. When you talk to veterans from the First and Second World War, they were facing each other on the battlefront.
Right.
And that made it more of a human, I'm killing my brother. But now we have made it so sophisticated that it is, to me, really, really scary. And when you said that, Dennis, it just resonated with me because we're in a scary time. and we don't have that person-to-person encounter.
Right. And thanks, Jane. And there was, while I was teaching social studies on Friday, the kids were doing something, and they're studying the First World War. And there was a little passage. They were working on they all have computers, so they just get on their computers and do their thing. So I was reading the textbook, and so there was this passage. It was a little story. It's from a novel. I can't remember what it was, but anyhow, an Allied soldier shot no, this was World War II. Shot a German soldier who was now down in, they were in a trench. And so the Allied soldier, he used his bayonet and stabbed him. And so they're down there in this trench. So the Allied soldier begins to talk to the now deceased German soldier. He's deceased, but he's still talking to him. And he said, you remind me of my brothers at home. You remind me of this. If only we had been able to talk. If only this, if only that. He was having regret for having to do this to another person that could be his brother. That's what you're saying, Jane. There's that human element there that is missing. And not that we want any war, but that when you're controlling something from a joystick elsewhere, it's a whole different thing. But digressing back, that's my whole point, is all of our actions, whether it's you and me in our daily lives, our political leaders here and around the world, our faith leaders here and around the world, our words matter and have consequences. Our actions matter and have consequences. The one who was sent here to be God with us, to be Emmanuel, was sent here not at the age that he was about the time of his death, around 33, but as a baby. As a baby. It doesn't get much more human than that. It doesn't get much more innocent than that. And so to have this innocence grow up and teach us that there is a better way to be with each other is truly a gift. And so we have a choice to make in life, in everyday life, both at a personal level and at a level of helping to be the voices that guide and shape the world around us, here at home and throughout our entire planet. We can either take those teachings of that little baby, or we can ignore them. We can take those teachings that innocent child grew up to teach us and put them into action, or we can ignore them and say, Jesus, your way is not our way, and we're going to go ahead and do whatever we want and not think about the repercussions of our actions. Those are actual choices, right? That's a choice. That's not some abstract pastory thing that I'm saying. That's an actual day-to-day choice in our lives. I can be a jerk to you, or I can choose not to be. I can stand up for other people who are marginalized, or I can pretend they don't even exist and they're not my problem. I can see warring with others in the community or warring with other nations and say, well, they don't, that's above my pay grade. They don't pay me to do that. Or I could say, you know what? There once was a little baby who was sent here full of innocence, love, peace, hope, and joy, that was sent here to teach us how to be among each other. And he would not approve of this. And I can stand up and say so. Those are all choices in our faith. We are constantly following that star, a star. There are lots of stars, so try to choose the right one. Kent can help you with this. Kent, Linda, Crichton, Kaler, they're all experts. They can help you find the star. No, but in all seriousness, you know, just as the Magi had enough faith in their heart to stand up against their instructions from King Herod, an authoritarian dictator who later slaughters countless children, among others. They can either listen to him and follow his instructions to the T to appease him, or they could follow that star to baby Jesus and his parents, Mary and Joseph, and provide gifts, to provide comfort, and to provide guidance on how to get to safety and protect this King of the Jews that was sent here to be the Prince of Peace and Emmanuel, God with us. They made a choice. They made a choice to protect God with us and the Prince of Peace. I hope that we can spend every day of our lives choosing to protect God with us, the Prince of Peace, and to be those who are protecting our faith, following our faith, and continuing to keep that star in our line of sight at all times. Amen.
on the